Welcome back to another Buff Zone interview, and I'm so excited to have Pastor E. Dewey Smith or Dr. E. Dewey Smith. You said it doesn't matter how I refer to you because there's not any birth certificate, but that respect. You're a doctor, you're a pastor from the got to get it right, the House of Hope in Atlanta ministry, and you've been doing this for a very long time. And the reason why I'm talking to you, a couple reasons, is you've got a long time connection to Coach Prime. And also, I found out this week that you're a pretty darn good recruiter, and so we're going to talk about some of the young men that you've known very well that are on their way to Boulder. But first off, Pastor, thank you very much for joining me.
Ryan, thanks for having me. You're doing an incredible job, and I enjoy your work, and so I'm humbled and honored to be here.
Well, I'm humbled and honored to have you here, so I appreciate it, and thanks for the compliment. Um, First off, how are things going? Let me just ask you personally, how are things going with you and down in Atlanta with your ministry?
Everything is well. Getting back, acclimated from the pandemic, so it's been exciting. My oldest son graduated from college last year. My wife and our baby son is graduating in a few weeks from high school, and she's doing well. The ministry is doing well. So, hey, I'm blessed just to be here.
You're about to be an empty nester.
Yeah, indeed. Very exciting.
Awesome. That's great. I've got four kids. I've got one that's graduating from high school in a couple weeks as well. So we'll both be hosting graduation parties here soon.
Indeed.
But
Congrats to you.
well, thanks, and to you as well. Let's start with Coach Prime because you've known
Yeah.
him. You told me for about 20 years. Uh,
Yes.
we know Coach Prime has a long connection to the city of Atlanta. That he obviously played for the Falcons. How did you meet with Coach Prime, and what was kind of those initial meetings like, and how'd you get to meet him?
Ironically, when I met him, he was still in the league at the time. He was either playing with the Redskins in Washington, I'm sorry, or the Ravens, and we were both invited to do a men's conference, to speak at a men's conference. So he was one of the speakers, and I was one of the speakers. Of course, I knew him, from his time in Atlanta, me being an athlete in high school, and with the opportunity to play college football. So who didn't know Deion Sanders? And
Right.
so we met, we hit it off at that conference. And man, immediately it was just magnetic. We just had a good vibe. And from that initial meeting 20 years ago has grown into a very close brotherhood where he's probably one of my best, if not my best friends in the world.
Well, and he often refers to you, and he talks about religion. He'll talk about his faith, and I think he probably leans on you. How much does he call you? And when there's little storms brewing or whether things are going well, how often does he call you and just say, "Hey, I need to talk to you"?
Well, truth is, if there's 7 days in a week, we're gonna talk five of them anyway. So whether it's something, whether it's peaceful or whether it's just we communicate all the time. So
Yeah.
there's no need to call when there's a crisis because we talk regularly anyway. But periodically the conversations will be about you know to get my thoughts on the situation, or it's a bit of controversy, or he wants another perspective on something. So those types of conversations, they do occur.
Yeah. I, I don't know if this is something you can speak on, but because it's about him. But we see the Coach Prime we see. He's an extremely confident man. I tell people when they ask me what it's like covering this team, I said I have never been around a more confident person in my life than Deion Sanders. And we see that come out, but he's also human.
Indeed.
And so and I'm sure you've seen more of those human moments in him than the rest of us. And so um, how did what is that like when you get those human moments with him and that most confident person in the world still needs somebody to kind of get them through something?
I think one of the most critical moments took place when he was at Jackson. And man, this was 21, I believe, when he had to endure um, extreme agony. He called one night just in excruciating pain, and that's when he was having the issue with his leg. They thought it was his turf toe that had been a challenge, and inevitably they discovered it was the blood clot that has been there. That's
Yeah.
they run in his family, and man, to see him in that type of agony, and I went to the hospital, flew to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Jackson to see him. He had just come out of surgery, and to see my friend who grew up as somebody that idolized, this strong, arguably arguably he and Bo Jackson, in my opinion, are the greatest athletes I've ever seen.
Yep.
And I may give him the nod simply because he played more sports. And to see this iconic world class athlete completely incapacitated and incoherent, we talk every day, and he was completely out of it. He didn't know I was there. And to see them talk about him, the possibility literally of him losing his life if that blood clot will lose, and losing his leg, portion of his leg at best. That was the conversation. And to see him that weakened was just something. You don't think Superman and somebody who's that confident would be in that level of agony, that level of pain. And man, but to see him navigate through that, to see him back out in the field a few days later, wrapped in a blanket, you know, in the cold. And I was like, brother, what are you doing, man? It's freezing out here. He just got out of the hospital, but he's at a practice because he wanted to be there with his team. And so I've seen those moments innumerably throughout our relationship. And even this past week with the firestorm on social media, we had some conversations regarding that as well. So it's been a journey. We're friends.
Yeah.
And so to see all of it, I feel God has, blessed me by giving me a friend like him, but put me in a position where we can talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and not have to be pretentious with each other.
Yeah. I wasn't going to go there, but since you mentioned the social media firestorm this week, um, there's been a lot of opinion on whether he should have said anything.
Yeah.
Opinions on, this is not he is not in a position to be making these comments like that. He shouldn't be doing that. What are your thoughts on that? What kinds of, if you're willing to share, what kinds of things
Yeah.
did you guys talk about in that regard?
When I talk to him, I recognize that whatever he does is going to be blown completely out of proportion.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, man, some things I wish you, wouldn't say. There are people who have been designated on social media platforms just to troll you, to throw vitriol, to throw insults. And I don't want you spending your time responding to these vitriolic, hateful statements from people. It's just not a good usage of your time. What I said to him is every night, dogs bark at the moon, and it's never a news story. But the moment that the moon barks back at the dog, it's on worldwide news.
Yeah.
And so you got to realize that sometimes you give signature to people who don't need signature, and your time is valuable. At the same time, I recognize that he's a human being. And when people are attacking his son and people are attacking him and his character, man, sometimes, when you keep getting poked and poked and poked, you may not respond in the most favorable manner. And I just don't think that people should criticize another person's steps if they haven't walked in their shoes. And so my advice is just to stay above it. But of course, it's not me. It's easy to say what a person should do if it's not you, but I just don't want him ever. I think he should be so elevated because of who he is, but he's a human being and like everybody else.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You made a good point, is that it's probably, in my opinion, it's probably true that the head coach of a college football team shouldn't bite back like that, but no other head coach is going to get poked like that. Right. And so when you're poked and you're poked and you're poked, and that dog's going to bite back at some point, it's hard not to. Right. And so I get it from that respect.
I told somebody the other day, I'm a Christian, and I believe in love and I love all people. I said, but the Bible says that if somebody hits you on one cheek, turn the other.
Yeah.
And I may turn the cheek, but if you keep hitting that cheek, at some point, I may come out, and what may come out may not be what you may expect. And so we're all incurably human. And I think he was having fun, but I do want to say this, however, he was not poking fun at a kid. He was really making a reference to the post. We talked about it. The post that Dalvin made, he was like, man, this is really getting out of hand. It's like, boy, so he was not trying to demean that kid. And that's the piece that I hate, that the misrepresentations, and they created this caricature of him. There's a difference between Deion Sanders and primetime Coach Prime. To
Yeah.
know him, to know he would never do anything to hurt a kid. And I think, how he was painted when he went to Colorado, really the same way when he went to Jackson State. It was really to challenge the kids. So to say I'm bringing Louis is not to say anybody else is Samsonite.
Yeah.
He was really trying to challenge the kids to see who really, really won. I mean, we've gone 1-11 the previous year,
Yeah.
so we gotta upset the equilibrium here to see who's really ready. Who wants to get in here and fight. So he would never ever demean a kid. There's so many stories he could tell about the kids who's jumped in the portal this year. I've
Yeah.
seen him give his last to kids, and so I just think it's unfortunate social media, but at the end of the day, when have you ever seen a 4-8 football team so relevant where it
Right.
completely dominates social media? So whether you love us or whether you hate us, you got to talk about Colorado Buffaloes.
Right. And yeah, and a 4-8 team, so under the microscope, right? And a
Yes.
team that it's an interesting dynamic because um they're picked apart because it's Deion Sanders, obviously a lot. But there's also I think those that weren't around in 2022, like I've been covering this team for 15 years now. Those who weren't around in 2022 don't realize how bad that team was and how much better Deion Sanders made this program in 1 year. And I don't know, jury's still out in 2024, but I look at the roster and I said, this is a better roster than it was in 2023. And, I don't know how good they're going to be, but I think they're going to be better than 4-8. And so, and I've told people, I said, if they get to a bowl game, now I know people are going to look at him and say, if they're not in the playoff, he failed. If they're in a bowl game in year two and it was any other coach, they'd be like, holy cow, what a turnaround that coach did at Colorado.
No doubt about it. I mean, no matter what he does, you're going to have those who are skeptical or cynical and critics. Who's just, he's become a villain in the eyes of so many
Yeah.
people. And truth of the matter is, people thought last year were predicting them to win 2 games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you win 4 games, and out of the 8 games that you lose, really, 6 of those games you were in it. A great deal of them you lost, by single digits. You know what I mean? When you think about he's been at the program for 16, a little over 16 months, not a full recruiting year last year, to take what he could get out of the portal and to do what we did and to play as well as we did, but what we had is Herculean. But because it's him, but he will win. This is going to be an amazing season this season. Without a doubt, we will be in a poll. We will be in a bowl game. I have no doubts about it, and
Yeah.
and that's frightening to people because so many people don't want to see him do well, and that's unfortunate.
Well, and as I look at it as a journalist, and I always try to take that level-headed journalist approach, and I try to take bias out of it. But I look at Colorado last year, and first off, people will look and say, well, they were 1-8 in the conference in 2022 and in 23.
Right.
True. However, they were getting their doors beaten off in 2022 when they were losing. In 2023, they weren't. And I always tell people they were 1-11 in 2022, and they weren't as good as their record because
Absolutely.
because anybody that watched them, they were kind of lucky to win that one. It was a perfect firestorm of everything that they had just fired the coach. Cal didn't know what to expect. But anyway, I believe that last year, and this is all speculation, but um, if you finished off that Stanford game, which they should have, that was an inexcusable loss, right? If you finish that off, that's win number 5, and I think you find a 6th win, because
Absolutely.
you're not reeling as much, and so I think they find a 6th win, and they're in a bowl game. So I thought they were that close to being a bowl team last year, and I think the roster's better right now.
No doubt about it. I mean, I think people really um, discredit the role of Travis Hunter's injury,
Yeah,
and just how much that affected the program, and that Stanford loss was deflating to say the least. I
yeah,
agree with you wholeheartedly. We should have been a bowl team last year, and barring injury, and that devastating loss, I'm sure we would have been. But we can't cry over spilled milk. It's water under the bridge now, and there are those who are already predicting a repeat season. I'm confident that won't happen. I'm
yeah,
very confident that this is going to be a resurgence, and it's going to be a major improvement. The roster, the confidence. When I talk to him and talk to some of the coaches to see where they are we're in a great place relative to the rebuilds.
Yeah. Well, and I want to go back to, your relationship with him because it's interesting. He's this well-known and, and very busy motivational speaker, for lack of a better term. He goes out and speaks a lot, right? And has a book, all these things. So it's interesting that that person needs you, at times. But I'm curious, how much does he help you? Because he
Man,
is known as that motivational guy.
we're brothers, man. We're friends. I'm his pastor, but we're friends.
Hmm.
And everybody needs encouragement. Iron sharpens iron. And there have been things that I've faced, and as a leader, one of the things that he doesn't get a lot of credit for is he is an amazing leader.
Hmm.
And he's always been beloved in the locker room, and he works hard, strategizing. He's incredibly creative in terms of marketing, social media, how to bring people together, how to get a message out. It's just so that inspiration and that love and that support, that accountability and that encouragement, it goes both ways. And so
Yeah.
he's been a major influence. I mean, this is something that I enjoy. I grew up as an athlete, so to be up close and personal, it's almost like I'm able to fulfill my competitive juices. Just being involved and being around, and to get my perspective and my opinions. It adds value to me as well. So I'm just humbled to be in the position I'm in.
Yeah. You said you've known him for about 20 years. Is it fun for you also to see Bucky doing what he's doing and Shiloh and Shador, doing what they're doing on the football field? I imagine that you knew them as very young boys as well.
Yeah, I didn't know them as closely. Of course, I knew of them, but
Yeah.
I watched their journey. I mean, all of them from high school, from Little League when he was coaching them, the Truth Academy, to Trinity Christian, Shiloh at South Carolina, and Bucky at SMU. So um, Shadur and Shiloh and I, we talk regularly, and so we laugh, and they consider me a sounding board as well when they need to talk about something,
Yeah.
and to see their maturation, to see their love for their father. I think that's another thing that people don't see, to see a man who's that engaged with his children, and
Mhm.
to have your three sons that active in your life, in your ministry, where they in your career and in your leadership, where they want to support you. I mean, Shiloh was a Division I athlete. I mean, Shadur could have gone anywhere. They had other
Yeah.
things prior to Jackson State, but to make those sacrifices, to leave Power Five or Division I institutions, to come, to follow and to help him at Jackson State. You know what I mean? Shiloh was Power Five. He was playing his freshman year.
Right.
He left the SEC to go be with his dad. I don't think people give him the credit that he deserves. You see the hate, but a man who's that involved to try to do something to set the example for his children, I don't think that's talked about enough. And it's unfortunate, because I think it's beautiful, because that's really a great paradigm of what love is and what family should be about.
Yeah.
And people can't see that because they are blinded by the hate. Many
Well,
can't, but some do.
yeah. Well, there's no question, the little bit I've gotten to know him and be around people around him is how much he loves his family. And I've just been amazed how many people not in his family but that are around him that have felt touched and inspired by him. From, you know, when I went to the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta, right after he was hired, talking to trainers, student trainers that have followed him to Boulder because they love him so much. And the equipment manager down at Jackson, and um,
Or yeah,
sports information people, the players, that's the other thing is, people talk about that's the big thing this week is all these players that he doesn't care about, but the players the stories of the players he cares about that I've talked to are amazing. Tyler Brown has spoke so highly of Coach Prime and what he's meant to him when I met with Tyler Brown. And so the amount of lives he's touched, I think is greater. I think that there's more appreciation for Deion Sanders than there is hate. I think it's just the hate's loud.
No doubt about it. And hate is always going to be louder. I mean, he was helping me with kids. I remember back in when he was at Truth Academy, I had a kid whose father passed away and was getting in trouble, an athlete. I sent him down. I said, man, I got this kid. He's out of control. Boy's 270 pounds and got a great future. So I'm just going to send your plane ticket, send him to me. The kid was 14 years old. 14 years old. I got the mom to consent. We sent him to Dallas, straighten that kid's life. Kid ended up getting a high school scholarship at the University of Georgia, played football. Now he's married, gainfully employed. This is before Jackson. This is before University of Colorado. This is before, Trinity Christian. So a lot of times people talk about what they see on television, social media. They have no idea what he's done to invest in the lives of people. And that's the thing that hurts me because people talk about what they don't know.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, you certainly have that amazing perspective, and I want to transition over to talking about some of your recruiting ability. But I do want to point out one thing because you mentioned he and Bo Jackson, right? Two of the best ever, and I agree with you. I was recently at the Baseball Hall of Fame
Wow.
because I cover the women's basketball team, and they were out in Albany, New York for the Sweet 16, and so I made a trip over to Cooperstown. They have this display, okay, of multi-sport athletes, and it features Bo Jackson and all these different guys. Michael Jordan's in there. There's no Deion Sanders in there. I'm like, come on, how can you not have Deion Sanders in there, but you got Michael Jordan in there?
Makes no sense.
Makes no sense. So just a little sidelight that it was just one of those things that I was just there and I was like, how do you not have Deion Sanders in the multi-sport athlete display?
Right.
So anyway, we'll move on from that. But you recently you have a relationship with a couple of guys that have committed to Colorado this week, and
Yeah.
those that follow the YouTube channel have seen my interview with Colton Hood, and probably know about this already because Colton talked about it. But Colton, Eagles Landing Christian Academy is the high school that Colton went to. He's now at Auburn and transferring here to Colorado. His brother Brandon is a senior at Eagles Landing. Zach Owens went to Eagles Landing, graduated with Colton, and is at Clemson and now coming to Colorado. And then you have RJ Johnson, who graduated Eagles Landing, is at Arkansas and is now coming to Colorado. Well, Colton referred to you as an uncle, and these guys I know you're close to. Can you talk about how that all developed?
Well, first of all, I've been involved with youth sports 36 years
Yeah,
since high school. Um, I've been involved in AU basketball, football. I've coached on every level of baseball. So I am a sports aficionado.
yeah,
I run my own basketball league in Atlanta for the past 15 years. I have 300 kids in my program every weekend. I've got NBA players like Anthony Edwards of the Timberwolves. He's come through my program. Jabari Smith of the Houston Rockets, Wendell Carter of the Orlando Magic. So this is what I've been doing forever. So the blessing with Eagles Landing, my sons attended Eagles Landing Christian Academy. Brandon Hood and my son, who are graduating together this in 2 weeks,
yeah,
have been best friends since their fifth, sixth grade. They played football together in elementary school and middle school. Colton played basketball with my son.
yeah.
Right. RJ Johnson's father was my oldest son's basketball coach at Eagles Landing in high school. Zach Owens, Trent Hood, Zach Owens, Brandon Hood, Colton Hood, all played on state championship squads together at Eagles Landing. They've played together since they was in fifth, sixth grade.
Yeah.
Brandon and Colton actually played against Michael Welch when he was
Right.
in Baldwin County at 10 years old. So I have relationships with these guys. Colton and Brandon's dad and I are like brothers. And so, when I saw what we had last year at Colorado, Brandon, I knew we needed a running back. And I didn't know what Colton would do because Brandon tore his ACL in his junior year. I
Yep.
mean, he was a 4-star running back, and a lot of Some schools backed off of him a little bit. But his first offer, I think, was LSU. I mean, Penn State, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So I knew what he could do, and I knew they wanted to play together. And I just kept talking, have those conversations, and was able to make the introduction. Their abilities and their hard work created the opportunity, and they trust me, and I trust them. And they both have idolized Coach Prime for years, and want to play together and do something special. And these are incredible athletes, amazing athletes. Eagles landed won about 5 or 6 state championships here in Georgia,
Yeah.
and Keaton Mitchell, who is now running backs for the Baltimore Ravens, Eagles Landing High School. As a matter of fact, when Keaton went to ECU to go to college, Brandon, as a ninth grader, replaced Keaton in the backfield. So Brandon is the next in line of those incredible running backs from Eagles Landing Christian Academy, and he's a future pro.
Yeah.
Even after his ACL injury. So to be connected to them, to have coached them in basketball, baseball, be the announcer in the football games, is just 10 years of relationship with that
Nice.
particular school.
So I got to ask you, are there more Eagles Landing guys that are going to come here, or is this the 4?
Uh, there are some incredible ones. I believe we're recruiting one I know, class of 26, Dorian Barney, who played basketball with my son his ninth grade year. And Dorian is probably the second or third cornerback in his class. He's now at Peachtree Ridge, which is North Atlanta, but again, Eagles Landing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there are other schools throughout Georgia and throughout the Southeast that I have relationships with, but I believe we have a good chance to get Dorian. Of course, that's 2 years from now, but he's going to be amazing. He's already a 4-star corner who visited during the spring game. So,
yeah.
And a few others that relationships have been made now.
Yeah. Well, I know obviously, you've been a Colorado fan now since Deion got there. I imagine you're gonna be more of a Colorado fan when you got these young men that you've mentored and become close with, playing for the Buffaloes as well.
Indeed, it's exciting to see because I know what our mantra is. He wants smart, fast, tough, disciplined with character. And these 4 gentlemen are going to make noise.
Yeah.
Immediately. Remember this conversation. They embody what he needs in terms of student athletes, all smart, all incredibly gifted athletes. That will make a difference this year.
Yeah.
For our team.
Well, when that group dominates, we write the story about the Eagles Landing guys, we're going to refer back to this conversation. So
I look forward to it.
yeah, well, it's awesome. Well, I've had so much fun talking to you, and
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time and your perspective on Coach Prime and these new kids coming in, and it's awesome to hear from you, and maybe we can catch up and do this again sometime.
I hope so. When the season starts, I hope to officially meet you in person. Maybe get some coffee or something.
Awesome, sounds good. Well, Pastor, I appreciate it. You have a great day down there in Atlanta, and we'll chat with you soon.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.